What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Country Bunkers Trains. Got a little bit of a different video today. Today's video actually goes out to Joe, a subscriber to the channel. Joe's been a long time subscriber to the channel, and he's been bugging me for a little while on doing a video of servicing these Postwar Lionel engines. I've been holding off on doing one as I really haven't had a new post-war engine come to the layout this year. I haven't had a good candidate to perform this video with. But I've got one today that I'm going to crack open, and we'll go through some of the steps that I do to get these engines back up and running. Looks like we had a tornado come through the graveyard. Damn cats. A couple words of caution before we get started, guys. As I've mentioned previously, by no means am I an expert, nor do I pretend to be. I'm not a certified technician or repairman, so take everything I'm about to show you with a grain of salt. One other item of caution: if you do not know how, or are unsure and nervous about doing some soldering work, just stop now. Take the engine to a repairman, let them handle it. These engines are going on 70 years old. I guarantee you somebody has cracked one of these open, and there might be some subpar soldering work done to the locomotive or engine. And even if they have not been opened up, as I say, these engines are almost 70 years old. The solder joints have become pretty brittle, along with the wiring. I've actually got this issue on this 2379 F3. I believe everything inside the engine is original and it hasn't been cracked open. However, all the solder joints are very, very brittle. You got to think these trucks are going to be moving a lot, running around the tracks, and with brittle solder joints, they break or come undone. Just something to think about. With all of that said, I have yet to come across a post-war Lionel locomotive that would not run. These things are little tanks. They're very, very resilient. A little bit of maintenance goes a long way with these trains. I've got a couple examples here. We've got a 2020 turbine that's in very, very rough shape. You can see the front has been bent. The drawbar has been bent. The steps on the side have been broken off. We're missing the front truck screw, so it's just dangling, as well as the spring for the rear truck and drawbar. I have yet to crack this one open, but guess what? She still runs. I'll show you that here in a minute. Another one, which I'm sure you've seen if you've been around on the channel for a little while, is this 2351 Milwaukee Road. This is in sad, sad shape. You can see we're missing parts of the body. It's cracked. The headlight lens is missing. Looks like it's crashed on the front. The coupler's just dangling here along with the pilot. The inside is horrible. Missing screws, wrong screws, all kinds of stuff. Somebody actually put the wrong screw back for the motor to the truck. You can see how loose it is and it wants to come up, and it's missing the clip underneath. They just put some tape in there. But again, even with this engine being in such sad shape, it still runs, which I'll show you here in a second. Here's the 2020. E-unit doesn't work, but the motor still runs, and she'll run around the tracks. Not great, obviously, but it works. And here's the EP5. The E-unit still works. Here's a look with the shell off. With that incorrect screw holding the motor to the truck, you can actually watch the motor twist up and down as it's trying to move. See it trying to go up. But like I say, with all the issues it has, it does still run. These are very resilient. If you've picked up a post-war engine and it's not running or moving, 9.9 times out of 10, it is due to a bad solder joint or a wire that's come unsoldered. You can see how poor these solder joints are. Doesn't look that great, does it? Obviously, both of these engines are a bit beyond just a normal service. These actually need restoration work more than a servicing. But honestly, that's my kind of thing. That's what gets me going in the Postwar Lionel hobby. Yeah, I love the mint pristine stuff as well, but there's no better satisfaction than taking an engine that somebody else would have written off as trash or no good or whatever, and bringing it back from the grave and getting it running again. I've performed this work on a 2367 Wabash F3. Like I say, it was extremely satisfying bringing this engine back from the grave. I'll post a link to the video on this engine, the Wabash, if you would like to view it. It doesn't go very in depth, but it gives you kind of an idea of what it's like bringing one of these back from the grave. Here's a look at the tools that I like to use when going over these engines, give or take a couple items. I am missing one of the more important items at the moment, and that's a can of electrical contact cleaner. That stuff's very important. I use the hell out of that. But like I say, I don't have any at the moment. But yeah, give or take a few items. Here's the majority of it. You know, obviously screwdrivers, pliers, needle nose pliers, a flashlight, a pencil eraser, some shrink tubing for the wiring, wire cutters, cleaners for the shells and whatnot, which we'll go over here in a little bit. Paper towel, obviously. And, of course, lube. and of course, again, soldering gun and some solder. This stuff's fairly cheap. I think I got this at the local Home Depot. I've had this for almost a year and still have quite a bit of it left. But honestly, out of everything here, the most important tool is actually right here, believe it or not. Your cell phone. And if you don't have a cell phone, a camera and a computer will work as well. I say this is the most important for two reasons. If this is your first engine that you're tackling, take a bunch of pictures of everything once you get the shell off. That way you have pictures to reference when you're putting it back together. I can't stress that enough. Pictures make everything a lot easier. As well as pictures, we have the web on these. And again, if you don't use the phone, use your computer. But there is a ton of great information out there on the web. How do you think I got started? Don't be afraid to use it. It's a great tool. Another great item to have would be an engine stand while you're working on your engines. I do not have one, unfortunately. But I do really enjoy this work mat that I picked up from one of the local auto parts stores. It's a nice soft space to put the engine down on. You don't got to worry about scratching it up. And as you can see, it picks up some of the dirt. I just run this through the washer and clean it up when I'm done. Usually I have this set up on our table in the living room, and I'll have the TV going while I'm working on my engines, and just sit back and do what I do. Here is today's candidate that we'll be working on, a 2363 Illinois Central F3. As I say, this probably isn't the best candidate for this video. This one came from a hobby shop, so it's been serviced, it's been worked on. Nothing like 99% of my stuff that I have. A lot of my stuff comes from train shows, garage sales, people's attics and garages and basements, all kinds of stuff. A lot of the stuff I get hasn't been touched in 30, 40 years. Whereas this one, like I say, this one's been serviced. The issue with this one, I'm assuming one of the fingers or something on the E-unit is dirty, not making a great contact. The engine runs and it runs good, but it kind of pulsates with power. So we're going to pull this one apart and check out the E-unit fingers and whatnot. Or if we see something once we get the shell off, obviously, then we won't have to do so, but let's get it cracked open and see what's going on. These mid-50s F3s are pretty common the way that the body is attached to the frame. They have one single screw up here towards the front with a couple of clips that clip onto the frame and hold the rear of the body onto the frame. Some engines differ. The earlier F3s, they have screws back here as well instead of the clips. Just pay attention to how it goes together and comes apart. Again, at this stage, if this is something you're uncomfortable with, I'd really highly recommend just stopping. Obviously, yeah, there's really only one way to learn, but you want to be pretty careful and delicate with these. This one happens to be a flathead screw. Get the screw out of there. Obviously, you can use a tub or something to put your screws in. For now, though, we'll just leave it there. I like to keep the rear trucks straight with the frame so these clips can move forward and don't interfere with the motor. So we'll lay it back down. We'll lift the front up and slide the shell forward and work it out of there. These can be kind of a bear. But there we go. One of the most important things you can do, take your shell and set it a ways away in a safe spot away from your work area. For two reasons. Obviously, you don't want to break your shell or have something fall on it and harm it. But the second reason, again, these are 70 years old. In here is going to be a little bit dirty. You're working with grease and oil and whatnot. You don't want to be grabbing your engine when your hands are dirty, or the shell to your engine and staining the paint, stuff like that. I went ahead and grabbed us a cup to put our screws in as we're disassembling. But here's a look underneath the shell, and here's the 2343 with the shell off for comparison. You'll hear me and other hobbyists refer to these as vertical and horizontal motored units. Here's how you can tell the difference. This is a vertical motor. It's standing up when compared to the frame. And here's a horizontal motor. Obviously, it's laying with the frame. But again, same basic motor. Your oiling spots for the verticals are right here on top, whereas for the horizontals, they're right here. Same basic principle. Nothing to be scared of. With the shell off, we want to go ahead and inspect everything that we can. Inspect your wiring, make sure none of it's frayed or rubbing anywhere. Stuff like that. And all this looks to be in pretty good shape. But I tell you what, I think I see our two culprits right off the bat. As I had mentioned, the soldering joints are almost always the problem. Here we can see not the best contact, as well as on this side. It's only got a couple strands that are actually soldered to the motor. I can almost guarantee you this is our issue. And like I say, this one came from a shop, so it's kind of surprising. But again, you know, that goes with the territory. You got to imagine, these are running on the track, obviously. You can see all the movement from the motor as they're going around curves and whatnot. Over time, that solder's liable to give up and let go. And as I say, that's usually almost always the culprit. We'll still go ahead and tear down into this one a little bit more. Make sure she's good to go for a little while longer. But yeah, I think that's our culprit. I think that's the reason why it's not running as good as it can be. The next item we want to do is check the grease in the trucks. These vertical mounted motors are secured by a screw. I don't know if you can see it or not right here on both ends. We'll go ahead and remove those screws and lean the trucks back a little bit and check on the grease and lube that are in there. Make sure they got enough. And again, if there's washers and whatnot, make sure to put the washers back where they came from. There's one. And here's the other. Go ahead and lean it back down, knowing that the motors are loose now. They'll just pop off the truck. And easy peasy, there we go. Here's a look inside the trucks and the gears. Looking pretty good. Grease still looks good. Nothing looking out of place. It's not dried up. Like I say, this isn't really a good comparison for what I'm used to working on. Usually when I crack these open, like I say, they haven't been run 30, 40 years. So it looks like dried up earwax in here, which just almost looks like it, but it still has consistency of lube. But normally what I have to do with these, I'll unsolder the pickup wires off the engine, and I'll take these over to the sink, and I'll completely fill this up with some Dawn dish soap and let them sit in some warm water, break up all that old grease and whatnot. And then I'll come after it with an old toothbrush, some ear cleaners, stuff like that, and get all the old dried up grease out of there. It usually takes a little while. You gotta let them sit for a minute or so. But I can usually get them pretty cleaned up fairly decent. Same thing with the worm drive on the motor. Get all of that cleaned up, and we'll apply some new lube. I'll go ahead and get these cleaned up. I'm not going to go crazy on them because, like I say, the lube still looks good. But we'll clean them up and put some fresh lube on them. Alright guys, like I say, I didn't go crazy. The lube still looked good in this one. I just cleaned out the bulk of it and applied some fresh new stuff to the gears. Got some down there in the main gear as well as these gears on the side that run alongside the truck to the wheels on the outside. And yeah, put a little on the worm gear of the motor as well. You don't want to go crazy. A little goes a long way. I'm actually going to hold off on putting this motor back because I'm going to remove the E-unit, and the motor needs to be out of the way to access it. But we'll check out the E-unit here next. For lube, everybody has their own preferences. Currently I'm using, I think this is basically red and tacky. I got this from Tony at Roundhouse South. But I've even used cam break-in lube for engines in here as well. Kind of the same stuff, a real thick, gooey lube. Kind of a mix in between an actual grease and an engine oil for viscosity or thickness. It works well, but again, a little goes a long way. You don't want to apply a whole lot. Our E-unit, which is right here, is held on by one screw down here. Let's go ahead and remove it, get it out of the way. Of course, this one's going to be a pain. We don't got to remove the screw completely, just loosen it up and it'll come right out. And all we want to do is inspect this. Here's a look inside the E-unit. A couple things we want to look for. First, you want to make sure your barrel here has all the teeth on it, which this one looks like it does. It looks like this one's been replaced at one time. And you also want to make sure these contacts are cleaned up on the barrel, as well as the fingers or the pickups on the wiring. I'll probably have to do that off camera. This is where your electrical contact cleaner spray can really comes into play. Rather than disassembling all this, usually you can douse this really good in that stuff and it'll clean it up, make it look really good. I've had very good luck with that. But I've had to repair and rebuild a couple of these as well. These have one pin right here that's pressed on, and to disassemble it I usually take my needle nose and I'll come in here. I'm not going to do it on this one, but I'll spread these apart and you'll feel it pop and it'll come out of place. Usually everything in here flies and goes in all sorts of different directions. Like I say, I'm not going to do it on this one. There's a bunch of great info and videos out there on the web if you do need to do this. A couple other items to look for. Make sure your plunger is moving freely, not binding up, which this one is. And also, for the E-unit lever, this rivet that holds it on, you want to make sure that's still nice and tight. You don't want this lever freely roaming around. You want some resistance on it. If that's loose and this arm's flopping around, then yeah, it's going to mess with the operation of the engine. Lock it in forward, neutral, reverse, or whatever. Luckily, this one still looks good. For the motors, there's 2 screws that hold on the brush plate on top. Go ahead and remove these. Oh. And then these just pop up. Be careful, don't lose your brushes. There's a look inside. There's one of the brushes. And there's the other one. We'll set those off to the side. Again, this one's pretty clean. This is where that pencil eraser comes into play to clean up the top of the commutator. It's kind of hard to do single-handed, but I'll go through and scrub this off with the eraser. You can see it's already taken a good little bit off. I'll do that. I'll take a toothpick and go through the cracks in here, get all the gunk out, stuff like that. Usually the brushes are in pretty good shape. These ones, they're used, but they're still usable. I'll take a paper towel and wipe any crud off, any excess carbon or whatnot, and then I'll reinstall them. Again, sometimes, yeah, you do have to replace them. I used to have a big batch of them that I would replace in the engines, but I've used them all up. In fact, these might actually be from that batch that I had. Luckily, I've never had to completely disassemble a motor. There is a clip in there that holds up against a thrust washer and a bearing that you take that clip out and you can pull the whole commutator out and re-lube and clean it up and whatnot. As I say, I've never had to do so. I've never had that kind of issue. I did have a pretty bad dry motor on that Wabash F3 that I was talking about earlier. I used that contact cleaner up. I never took the whole motor apart, but I had to use a lot of oil to get down to them bearings because it was fairly dry. It was squawking running around the track. Obviously, yeah, I should have just taken the motor apart and lubed them up that way, but I did not. I just oiled them up here and let the oil work its way down, and it worked. Like I say, I've never had to do it. Fingers crossed, hopefully I don't have to, but I'm sure one day I'll run into one that I'll have to do that on. Here's a look after only a couple minutes with the pencil eraser. As you can see, it does a hell of a job cleaning it right up. Looking good. And here's the brushes after a dry wipe down with the paper towel. Look a lot better. When you're putting these back together, you'll notice these notches on the top. You want these to line up with your springs on your brush plate. I don't know if you can see them or not. But those springs should fit right into that tab, which you can see on this one. But I'll go ahead and get this one buttoned up and do the other side. We should be close to being back in business. Alrighty, guys. Well, we got the other commutator face cleaned up, brushes cleaned up, looking good. But I tell you what, while we were working on the engine, look what happened. Another wire came undone. Like I say, this stuff's very brittle, and 9 times out of 10, that's the culprit to what's happening if your engine won't run. This is usually what I find. I'll go ahead and get this cleaned up off camera and resoldered back on. Soldering, it's not hard. I still consider myself a novice. I'm not a professional, as I say. But these are good engines to learn how to solder on. You don't have touchy electronics and whatnot. Stuff's not really close together. But you just want to strip the insulation back off of the wire, clean the wire up, and tin it, which is putting some solder on the end of the wire, and then solder it back to the motor. I don't have one of those fancy solder wiring tools with clamps that hold it in place. I got to get creative. Normally I put the wire where I need it and put some weight on it to hold it in place while I'm soldering it back together. But yeah, I'll warm up this old solder, get all this old stuff out of here, so we got something fresh and new to solder to. Same with all the other places as well. We'll undo this one and redo it, and the one back here too. Alrighty guys, got our wires soldered up, looking good. Nice solid connection, they're not going anywhere. I played with them back here a little as well. Not as pretty, but it'll work, hopefully. Our last step is adding a little oil to the motors. Me personally, I use some motor oil, 1030. That's what I have easily accessible, so that's what I use. That's what's in this little dropper bottle. I know a lot of guys like using LaBelle's oil and stuff like that, but again, this is what I have, and man, you can't beat the price. A quart of this stuff will last forever. But all we're going to do, again, you see these little oil holes up here? We're just going to add a couple little drops. Remember, a little goes a long way. There's that one. There's that one. I'll go ahead and wipe off that excess. Remember what I was telling you when we started. Put your shell aside. You see how dirty my hands got? We don't want to handle our nice shell with these greasy fingerprints. That would be no bueno. But yeah, I'll go ahead and clean this up. I'll clean up my hands and we'll get it on the test track. One last thing we want to do before taking it back over to the layout is ensuring all the wheels are nice and clean. Getting all the black crud and all that off of them. Remember, these are your electrical points or contacts for the engine itself. You want those as clean as possible. We also want to ensure that our rollers, our pickup rollers, are actually rolling. This one, you can actually see it's been hanging up in two spots and dragging. So we're going to have to oil these up. Sometimes these are completely welded to the pickup itself and won't roll. I usually like to get in there with the needle nose or another set of pliers and work them back and forth. I'll lube them up with the same motor oil. I know a lot of guys like to use electrical contact oil, stuff like that. I don't have that at my disposal, so I use the motor oil here as well. And it's not an issue, or it hasn't seemed to be an issue. This one looks to be doing the same thing. So we'll oil these up and get them rolling nice and smooth again and go from there. Alrighty guys, we're ready to do some testing. Looking pretty good. I would highly recommend having a test track for working on engines that you're working on. For a couple reasons. If the repair you made doesn't work, or only holds for a little bit, you don't want the engine to end up in the back corner of the layout that you can't access easily. It's fun going to chase them and get them down. Another reason, obviously we've just done a lube job on this engine. If we added too much lube or oil, it's all going to seep out and get caught up on the tracks. You don't want to have an oily or filthy track, again, in the back sections where you can't reach. So as I say, I use this upper loop around the city for testing the engines. I can clean it easily if needed. If the engine dies somewhere, I can go grab it easily. It's not a big headache. But let's go ahead and try her out. The E-unit's working. Check that out. Pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and let this thing run for a little bit without the shell on it. That way, if something happens, one of these new solder joints comes undone, we can just fix it right there. It's pretty easy. Don't have to worry about taking the shell back off. But yeah, pretty cool. Real quick, while I'll have the shell off of the frame, I like to give them a good cleaning. Now's a good time to do it. A lot easier to clean them now. For cleaning them, I really like using this stuff. A fellow O-Gauge YouTuber turned me on to this stuff a little while ago. I believe, I forget his name, but the channel was Lionel for Less. This stuff's great. Does a good job of cleaning and leaves a nice shine or sheen on the shells once you're done. But in the past, I've used other stuff too to give them a bath. One thing I've run into, especially on the yellow engines, like the 2023 Union Pacifics we went over the other day, they get like it almost looks like a mold, a dark mold that like stains the body. For that type of stuff, I use this new finish from the automotive industry. It's a polish, but really it's kind of like a cleaner wax. This does a good job of cutting the grime off of the body. But again, with any cleaner that you are looking to use, test it on a spot that's not really going to be seen. Make sure it's not going to hurt the paint or anything like that. I know a lot of guys like to use Armor All, but coming from the classic car community, I'm not really a big fan of Armor All. I do use it, and it works good on the steam engines. It gives a nice shine to them, and you don't really got to worry about it. But Armor All has alcohol in it that dries up plastics and stuff like that. I won't be using that on these plastic shells. But like I say, it works good for the steam engines where you don't got to worry about it because they're die-cast metal. But yeah, with these plastic shells and whatnot, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. Well, we ran the engine for a little while, and she seemed to pass the test. Working pretty good. I think we're ready to go ahead and put her back together. Reassembly's pretty easy, the exact same way you took it apart. Make sure your truck on the back is nice and straight so the motor's straight with the frame. And we go ahead and work in our clips that clip onto the back of the frame. Slide it back. Be a little bit of a pain. Make sure all your wires are clear. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and we'll reinsert our screw and we're good to go. She's back together, looking like a train again. Let's see if all our hard work paid off. Very nice. I hope this helped you out, or at least gave you a few ideas. As I've said previously, I'm not an expert. I'm not a certified technician. I'm sure the experts are bashing their head against the wall seeing what I'm doing. Oh well. Like I say, this has worked for me, and I've had no issues. I've brought many back from the grave this way. I'm sorry this one wasn't nearly as in-depth as I was hoping. Like I say, this one's in fairly good shape. This one came from a dealer. So like I say, she's in good shape. She didn't need a whole lot. But yeah, a lot of my stuff, like I say, it's pretty far gone. It needs a lot of work. The best advice I think I can give you is to take a stab at it. Go ahead and try tackling the job. Don't be afraid of it. I mean, hell, you didn't learn how to ride a bike overnight, did you? And it's the same way with these. Really, the best way to learn is to get in there and get your hands dirty. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Until next time, guys, my name is Zach. And this is Country Bunkers Trains. Y'all take care. I'll see you the next go around.